our nightly homesteading live stream. Scott and Tina here with you at Mississippi Family Homestead.
We got the fire going, so it's really nice to be outside on this cool night with the fire. So tonight we're going to talk about maybe some homestead burnout. Like a lot of people get, they start your homestead and you get really burned out, or you just think you don't want to do it anymore. And so we're going to maybe talk about some ways that maybe you can help yourself, not to get burned out like that. So I know last year, we just felt like we didn't have time to do the everything that needed to be done, so we just didn't do a garden. That was, it's kind of something that happens if you've got too much going on. It's hard to have a large garden and things to do in the garden. So we're just going to talk about maybe some ways that, leave in the chat if you've had any burnout on your homestead.
Yeah, we've, I'm sorry, I'm trying to make sure the stream's going here, but, having burnout is possible just like a job or anything else. So I know a lot of people are real excited about starting a homestead, but if you're too excited and you just, overdo it at first, it is real possible that you could get burned out.
Yeah. So, one thing you could do is, not to get burned out if you're first starting a homestead or your first couple of years. Don't try to do everything, at one time. Don't try to get 50 chickens or buy a bunch of cows, Try to do a little at a time if you can. I know for us it's hard because we have full-time jobs. So if you're trying to start your homestead and you still have a full-time job, I don't suggest you get every animal there is and, 50 chickens, because it will burn you out real quick. And I know, a lot of homesteaders have kids, or teenagers that can help on the homestead. And if you have that, get your kids involved and your teenagers, give them chores, don't let yourself just do it all by yourself. It's hard to do everything by yourself. And I think that's one of our problems. Sometimes we can't do enough because we're just doing it by ourselves. We have kids, but they're grown and they're not willing to really help us.
They're willing to eat.
They're willing to eat the food out of the garden.
But I don't know. We've had a few more volunteers this year from the family, but
I think they missed not having a garden last year. They're like, we'll help if you'll grow a garden, So that's one thing that I know that we have. It would be real easy for us to get burnt out and just say, I give up. Let me get rid of these chickens and not do this anymore, but I'm not, and I don't want to. And, just one thing that could help you is just to take a day away from a homestead, just go to shopping somewhere out of town or go on a mini vacation just to spend one night somewhere, or, just get your neighbor to watch the farm for a day and let you go somewhere, get away from it. That might help. And one of the things that, you're getting burned out is if, you get kind of depressed and you're sleeping all the time. You don't want to get up. You don't want to get up and take
kind of like in a way, if you have a job that you're not, that you don't like, it could be because it is a job.
Yeah,
it's at your home, but it is a job.
Yeah.
And you don't want to hate it, you want to...
Yeah, you want to do your dream. If you're starting a homestead and it's your dream, you don't want to end up, just hating what you're doing. You want to keep yourself from doing that. And a lot of us, I think, you get so excited about, moving to a homestead and starting a garden and getting all these animals and stuff. And it just sometimes seems to get overwhelming, I guess.
Right. Like, the best way probably to avoid the burnout is plan it out ahead of time. If you don't have a homestead yet and you're looking at getting some land, you want to plan it out ahead of time. Like we've said before, you want to space it out. Start small. If you start with 30 chickens and you've never had chickens, you will probably get burnt out
Yeah.
pretty quick because you're going to be, you know, your workload goes from nothing to way on up there.
Yeah. You know, they talk about starting, you know, any phase. The first year is called like a honeymoon phase, you know, but it
Yeah.
is, that's what they call it, is a honeymoon phase. So your first year or two is your honeymoon phase, and then you get on to year 3 and 4 and 5 and on, you know, it's kind of like, did I really make, you know, the best decision to do this homestead? And, you know, I've read reports where on the 6th year, some people just give up, you know, and they just decide that it's not for them. But, you know, my advice would be if you're starting a homestead, to make sure, you know, beforehand and think about those things. You know, am I going to get burnt out, you know, tilling this garden and growing this food and having to go pick it and raising these chickens and cleaning their pen? Am I going to get burnt out on that? You know, so some homesteading's not for everyone. So just know that you can get really burn out sometimes on that.
Yeah, and then don't feel bad if you have this idea of something and then you say, no, I don't want to do that or do as much. But I'm going to move the camera. The smoke's kind of getting...
Yeah. We should have made some hot chocolate out here by
You
the
know,
fire.
we talked about that,
We
didn't
did talk about making hot chocolate.
There, you can see the fire.
Yeah.
It took a little bit to get that fire going today. We've had a lot of rain. This wood was supposed to be dry.
Yeah.
But, and by the way, it's a beautiful night here in Mississippi. We're in central Mississippi, and when we shut the lights off, you can see
Yeah,
all
you can
the stars.
see all the stars. So the sun was brightly shining today, and so I know it's clear. You can see everything. I don't think the moon's come up yet. I don't see the moon, do you?
No, I don't see it, but I see a lot of stars.
It is rewarding, though, being, you know, on the homestead, being able to sit out like a fire like this and look at the stars, and
You know, not much going on homestead in the wintertime, but in summertime, it is rewarding to come out here and just have a campfire and
yeah,
think about what you got accomplished that day.
yeah, yeah. So, I mean, even in early springtime, you know, before it gets really, really hot, you can still have a fire, you know, sit out by it. And I know a lot of people up north probably can sit out by a fire, you know, all the time, even in the summer.
Yeah.
You know, because it doesn't.
We have fires in the summertime.
Yeah, we do, but you want to stay away from them. It's kind of it's kind of hot. Sometimes it gets, I don't know,
This
it
one needs
stays
to
in
be a little hotter.
yeah,
It's
in
30.
70s.
I think it's 32 degrees.
Is
out
it 32 degrees? It's almost freezing, or it is
Yeah.
freezing. Yeah. So.
But you know, some other ways you can prevent burnout would be obviously planning it out, but like, don't get the wrong kind of animals either.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you got, you know, starting with chickens is probably the best thing, but if you got started out with a bunch of cows and you didn't know how to raise those cows,
yeah.
you probably would get stressed out, get burnt out, get depressed, and, you know, because it is a real thing. It can depress you
Yeah, it
and
can.
frustrate you, and you would be, you know, because the idea of homesteading is to have a more simpler life.
Yeah, and if you make it too complicated for yourself, then, you know, that's not good. You know, don't, just make sure that you're not going to get burnt out. Make those plans and make sure that you're just not going to get burnt out, you know,
Right.
to begin with.
Yeah.
So, and if you do get burnt out, there's things that you can do, you know, go talk to somebody, go spend time with a neighbor, you know, go, you
Probably
know,
get a neighbor to help you.
Yeah,
You know, if
yeah,
you're getting
something like
behind in
that.
your work, you know, see if somebody'd help you and you could help them.
You know, down here, we pray a lot, you know, about what's going on in our life, and when we need things, we pray about it. Or maybe you can just read a scripture, you know, or something out of the Bible that could help you through that.
And that's probably another thing, is start your day off with a prayer or Bible scripture, you
Yeah.
know, in the mornings, and
It really
get your
helps.
mind in the
Yeah.
right place before you start, because
Right,
you know,
right.
I do think, you know, God created us to do work, and I think, you know, that's another thing with homesteading, is it allows us to get more connected, you know, with God and with
Nature.
with nature and
You know,
where your
we-
food comes from.
Yeah, we were put on the earth, you know, to take care of it and take care of animals. And, you know, Adam and Eve didn't didn't start out with a house and money and stuff. You know,
They had a garden already grown, though, didn't it?
I don't know. At first they did, until they got threw out. But then they, you know, they grew their garden and they had to work. So, you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, some things you can do, just, you know, take deep breaths, start out positive, you know, wake up at a certain time, you know, don't lay in bed, you know, just make it a point to get up at a certain time and do all your routines on a schedule if you need to. That way you're not just running around, you know, not knowing what you're going to do that day. I think sometimes that will help. You know, you feel like you're overwhelmed sometimes, and if you'll make a schedule, that'll help you on your homestead. You know, just like if you were doing a real job, you know, like we do every day.
Yeah.
But if you make yourself a schedule and say, hey, I'm going to get up at 7 o'clock, you know, say my prayers, read a scripture, go feed the chickens at 8 o'clock, you know, take care of the cows or whatever, you know, have that done by 10 or so, and, you know, then just go take a break, you know, or something. And I know it's easier in the wintertime than it is in the summertime, but, you know, take wintertime and just take a breath, you know. I mean, animals still have to be taken care of, but you're not growing a garden, you know, usually in the wintertime.
Yeah, and you know, you may want to pick one to three things you want to accomplish that day.
Yeah.
And, you know, make one of them easy, one of them maybe a little harder, and at least accomplish those. And if you can accomplish something else, but, you know, then look back and see what you've accomplished.
And if you've had like a big garden, you know, the year before, and you have plenty of food put up, if you feel like you're really burnt out in your garden, just make it smaller. Just make it the basics, you know. I know for our food that we've put up, especially like peas and stuff like that, that lasts for, you know, a good year and a half. So, you know, just do something like that. You know, cut back on your garden. If you need to get rid of some of your animals, you know, see if you can give them to a neighbor or something, you know.
Yeah, you can always downsize.
Yeah, don't let yourself just quit, you know. Try to do those things to help yourself.
Right. And one thing that, you know, I know in the peak of the summer here in Mississippi, it gets real hot, and the garden, if you're out there during the middle of the day, the garden it's just unbearable to work in sometimes. So, you know, if you could plan on working in it maybe before you even go to work, or when you get home in the afternoon, instead of working on it in the peak of the day, because you'll get exhausted, frustrated, and, you know, and it's, you know, if it's real hot, it's definitely not safe to do that. So, you know, that may be another way to avoid getting burned out.
Yeah. So. I think a garden is the worst way to get burnout. I think it's really, really hard sometimes to make your garden work. Harder than what you would think it was.
So it's probably in some ways worse than the chickens.
It is. It is in some ways worse than the chickens or, you know, animals.
That's another thing, is when you're planting your garden out, you need to plan it, you know, because it's not just the planting, you know, because you're planting it, you're trying to keep the weeds out of it, and then you've got to harvest all that food at the right time.
Yeah,
and, you know, you have to pick it when it's ripe or it'll be gone. So, you know, it's kind of a rush right then.
And if you can afford to, if you have a bigger garden and you might can afford to have a young teenager come help you in the summertime or something, you know, or if you don't have kids like we don't.
We have kids, but they're not young.
That's right. They don't want to help us anymore. So I think it's great, you know, when you have a young family and you have kids that you can get out there and, you know, teach them how to work. But if you don't, you know, maybe see if you could possibly hire somebody just to help you around the farm or something.
Yeah.
Especially if you're getting burnt out, you know, just try to do that. That'll help you not get burnt out because, you know, it's so rewarding to have your homestead. And if you get really, really burnt out, you don't really want to quit it, you know. It's hard to start something and then decide that, you know, you're just so burnt out you can't do it anymore. So don't get that way in the first place. Know the signs of, depression and just not wanting to do it anymore. And at that point, when you realize you're getting burnt out, step back a little bit then. Don't wait till it's really, really bad.
And I think if you start off slow that first year, if you start off real slow, I think it's a lot easier. And then you can tell then if you need to start scaling up and doing more. But I think the most important thing is to start off slow. We didn't start off slow because we started off with the garden, building projects.
A lot.
We've been doing a lot.
Yeah, we had a building projects, and I feel like we do things, but it doesn't get completely finished. Sometimes. So
I am the worst about finishing stuff, and I need to spend a whole month just finishing projects.
Yeah, and think about maybe some things if you're starting a homestead that you can start off with that down the road that it's going to be great for your homestead, like having a pond on your property.
Yeah.
You can use that to water your garden, lots of stuff.
And definitely sit and enjoy it, in the afternoons, the old days they used to come out, sit out on the porch.
Yeah.
Enjoy it. Enjoy the evenings, and I think that's my favorite time. I like the mornings. I would like to come sit out in the mornings.
Yeah, I'm not a morning person, so I don't do well in the mornings. But I do like night. I like this. Yeah. I like sitting by the fire. I do good then.
Sunrises, but she's more of a sunset person.
Yeah, I like my sunsets.
Yeah.
And the moon and the stars. I'm a night owl, I guess.
But enjoy it. Or, if you're out in the country and there's not a lot of street lights, one thing to do is like a night like tonight is turn off all the lights and just look at the stars.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just something about it that just, kind of takes
it's
you
rewarding.
away.
Yeah, it does take you away from whatever troubles you may be thinking about or going through. If you could just look at the stars and, think about, I do. Like, I look at those stars and I'm like, it's amazing to me that there are that many stars up there. And we live in this huge, huge world that God created. To me, things like that's my miracle thinking. That I'm able to live out here, that I can see the stars like that, and just try to count your blessings too, so you're appreciative of what you got.
And if you can walk in the woods, take a little walk in the woods and. There's so many things, just, the point of homesteading is so you can enjoy it and enjoy life. So, you definitely don't want to get burnt out, but, it's I think the best thing to do is just kind of move slow and go with it there.
Yeah, don't get to the point that you're burnt out.
And then also, something else comes to mind is like when you're getting animals, like, say you're getting chickens, try to do your chicken coop right. So we talked about predators last night, but you'll want to build your chicken coop so it doesn't, so predators can't get in easy, because if they get in the middle of the night, that's going to stress you out, and then you're up all night.
Yeah.
You got to go up, you got to go to work the next day. So I think a lot of things is, if you can do something right the first time,
do it right the first time.
It will, if you've got cows, make sure you build the fence right, or you're going to get that will stress you out.
Yeah.
If you get goats, make sure they're
in a fenced area.
A fenced, or however you can keep goats in. We've never had goats. We probably never will have goats.
I don't know. I think I might want a goat.
You have enough chickens, but I wouldn't mind having a milk goat. I think.
I'm like a milk goat.
Yeah.
Maybe. Yeah. I really would like to have a milk cow, but they cost more to feed than they do.
And we really don't have a pasture right now. We'd have to clear off some land.
Yeah, we would. Now a goat we could have, and he could help us clear off some land. You put a fence around it, and they like to eat. To dig up stuff.
Yeah.
Maybe a pig.
And by
Dig
the
up all
way,
the kudzu.
if you're just joining us, you know, leave a comment below. Let us know where you're at, where
Yeah.
you're watching from. If you have a homestead, if you're looking into homesteading or gardening or raising
Whatever.
chickens,
Yeah.
let us know what you're doing, and hit that like button and subscribe if you want to. We're trying to bring you, you know, we have our normal videos on the channel, and we're trying to do a live stream weeknights focusing on homesteading, and hope to get some chatting up and questions and stuff like that. So we invite you to join us when you can weeknights.
Yeah. So we're just normal people. We're not.
I don't know if we're normal.
Well, we're not normal, but we just, you know, we live out here in the country. We have a small homestead, and we want to help other people, you know, learn about homesteading, and, you know, if you're thinking about homesteading. So that's the point of the channel, you know, just to, you know, answer questions or anything that we can help you with, or if you just want to chat with us about, you know, your homestead, we'd love to hear, you know, how you got started or about your homestead or anything like that.
And we're probably a little older than a lot of the homesteaders starting out, you know, but, you know, which I hope that tells you that you're, in most cases, not too old to start. Now,
That's right.
Let me tell you this, the older you get, the harder it, you know, you're probably going to want more tools like a tractor and stuff, but it's not too, you know, it's usually not too late to start a homestead. So we're hoping to encourage some people, if that's the route you want to take, to do that. And our goal was to get healthier, to
live simply.
Yeah, live a more simple life out here on the homestead.
Yeah, I think we were more burnout with having a nicer house and you know, worrying about paying for all of that than we are now on the homestead. So that was, you know, our goal. It was really hard sometimes to live in a really nice house and, you know, pay those extraneous bills. And
because we had that nice house, and I mean, it's not bragging, but it's to say it really doesn't mean anything.
No,
to be honest with
it doesn't. It doesn't.
And it, you know, it's just a high payment, and it just, you know, we finally one day we were kind of thinking, you know, nobody really likes it here. No, I mean, it's a nice neighborhood and everything, but it's, you know, we had this land, we thought, you know, we're crazy not to go back here. And
live simple.
And there was a lot of work to do when we came up here. It was
woods everywhere.
Yeah, we have tractors now, but when we started out, we didn't have the tractors. We had a chainsaw and a few four-wheelers, and that was it. We later got a small tractor, real small one, and was able to do some clearing there, and then came about, you know, a really old tractor. And
yeah, that's Papa, the yellow tractor. It was really, really old.
Yeah, it was really old, but it's still running though.
Yeah,
and we've got a new tractor also, but we've had to work hard for that and accumulate that.
So that's another thing. If you're starting a homestead, don't get everything new. You know, you don't have to have extremely new stuff. Get you a used tractor, you know, if you have to have a tractor, if you're,
Which we do have, you know, for full transparency, we do have a new tractor, but we just bought that one.
Yeah.
We have a really small tractor for the garden that's not much bigger than a lawnmower, but it's perfect for gardening. It's a 1980s-ish tractor.
Yeah, and we got it used, and
yeah,
it's
we
still
got
going.
it used from a friend, and then we've got the other tractor was really given to us, and it needed some work on the hydraulics, but it was a 1974, I think.
Massey Ferguson.
And yeah, it's a big commercial type tractor, but it's.
Yeah, so if there's any way that you just look around, people give stuff away or just want to get rid of it for a fraction sometimes, you know. So that's another thing to think about. And now we've got our new tractor that we got. What is it?
Kubota?
Yeah, it's a Kubota.
Yeah.
It's really nice, but we just got that.
Yeah, I mean, we
this
use a tractor. We've got almost 50 acres out here, so we use a tractor a lot, and that's why we got it. But you know, you don't have to have a tractor to do a garden. Let me tell you, you can, you know, there's all kinds of ways to plow your garden. You know, we just slowly accumulated stuff. But now also another thing is we have our full-time jobs. We have downsized our house. We got a mobile home.
Yeah.
And we've downsized to the point where we could do that type of stuff. If we still had the house, the big house, there's no way we could have done that stuff.
Right,
You know,
right.
and that's all you have is the house, and it's just not for us. It just wasn't for us. Some
No, it
people,
wasn't.
that life is for them.
Yeah.
But we really wanted to kind of be more of the country life.
Yeah.
And honestly, you know, I've gotten to where I just don't want to leave the property.
Yeah,
You
yeah.
just,
It's so nice to be here and have the acreage in the woods and be able to go walk in the woods if we want to.
And hopefully you'll find a place like that you can call home. And if you're younger, raise children on there. You know, if you're older, live out your years there. You know, that's kind of
Yeah.
what we're wanting to do. But,
Yeah.
you know, this is the home place in her family, but it's been in generations for years. But we're trying to get it back in shape the way it was. You know,
Right,
for a
right.
while it was, you know, we would come back up here and it was just kind of depressing coming up here.
It was depressing, but
You
now
remember,
that we've
like
yeah.
20 years ago.
Yeah, we would come up here and it was just, you know, my grandparents' old house was just kind of there, and, you know, just, it was sad, you know, to come up here and everything was growed up and it wasn't kept up like my grandparents had it. And it's rewarding to be able to come up here and, you know, live. You know,
And I
on
still
this
don't
land.
see how they did it.
I still don't.
He
I
worked
don't
a
know.
full-time job. You know, your grandmother didn't work outside the house, but not only did they always have a garden. When I first met
And
you,
they
they
had
had
a-
cows.
Yeah, they
And-
had a big garden.
Yeah, they had a big garden. We've got a big garden, but his was bigger than what we've got.
He would plant rows of corn and rows of peas
Yeah.
and butter beans and green beans.
There
and,
were down in what used to be the pasture. It's grown up now. It used to be corn and stuff down there. It
Yeah.
was cleared out.
Yeah, there was, and he had his cows, and there was, you know, and this was when he had his cows, and he still had a garden up, you know, up in his years till he was 70.
Yeah.
You know, and he kept
He
that
was
garden.
in his 80s when he had the garden.
I
wasn't
guess he was. Yeah, he still
Because
had a garden.
yeah, and then not only did they have the garden, the flowers were just beautiful
Yes,
everywhere.
my grandmother actually she planted zinnias, and what she would do is she'd plant those zinnias and she would go tie a little rag around the zinnias, the prettiest ones. She'd tie a rag around the prettiest ones, and once they dried out in the late fall, she would pick those seeds off of there, pick them off the
Yeah.
top of the flower, and she would put them down in a jar. And she'd put it up for the winter time, and in the spring, as soon as it got, you know, warm enough to plant something, she had my grandpa till her up a whole row, and she would go plant those zinnia seeds. And I mean, for years, that's what she would do over and she didn't go buy those seeds, you know.
Yeah, we buy really. I'm trying to start to. I want to on the heirloom seeds. I want to try to reuse those, but you know, when we look back at what they used to do, you know, what our ancestors and just even
How did
our
they not get
grandparents
burnt
and
out?
yeah,
I guess
they had no choice.
I guess not.
you know,
you know.
if you got burnt out, you just didn't eat. I think that's what kept them going. But,
Yeah.
and I think you know, a lot of us start homesteading after we're adults, after we've already lived the luxury and the air conditioning and all this stuff.
Yeah. And they didn't live that way.
Yeah, they started what we're calling homesteading now. They started
When they were growing up.
3 years old.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah.
I mean, they would do stuff. And
Yeah.
especially around this area out in the country. And, you know, back then, even as late as the 50s, I think they were living that kind of life. And, you know, but they, you know, you look back at how they survived out here in the country, and it's just really interesting.
Yeah. And My grandparents, they didn't have a dryer ever. They never had a dryer. And my grandmother, they didn't have a washing machine till I got about 10.
Didn't they go to the creek and wash them, or
They
use
would,
that
well,
little
they would
scrub
use
thing?
the little scrub thing. My grandmother would. I mean, and that was when I was little, you know, in the 70s and 80s. She didn't have, she never had a dryer. She would just hang her clothes up to dry, and didn't have a washing machine until I got, you know, quite a bit older. And they had, I think they had gas for heat, you know, in the wintertime. They would have a big propane tank outside. They had that for heat in the wintertime. And then, but before that, I guess they, you know, they had
I think,
had a wood heater, a fireplace.
Yeah.
And they used that. But it's still amazing to me how they didn't get, I guess they didn't know any better. There wasn't anything called a burnout, you know.
there wasn't any counseling
there wasn't no
or
choice
anything back then.
for you to get burnout back in those days.
Yeah. So, I was looking, said something in the chat, but yeah, it's real interesting to look back and what we're calling Homestead, and it's kind of romanticized now with our culture. It was a way of life back then.
Yeah,
you know, and it was just.
Okay, I'm gonna have to move up. I'm cold.
I think, you know, and I think we've gotten too far away from that.
Yeah.
Because it's just, you know, in some ways, I think that's how life was supposed to be, without, you know, I mean, we all love these modern luxuries, but, you know, are we really any better?
Yeah, yeah.
Because it's, you know, I don't think and you know, it's kind of off the subject, but kind of is, but like, you know, we've got the luxury of these cell phones, but it's almost like we communicate more horrible now than ever before.
That's right. There's no really communication. I mean, even, you know, when we grew up, we just had the landline phone. You know, we didn't have
when
these.
You used to call and you were lucky if you had one of those long cords and you could go in the hall.
Yeah. you could go in your room, like
sit on the floor and hide.
Yeah, sit on the floor and hide in your room with the long cord pulled up under the door and your door shut.
Yeah.
That's what, you know.
And you used to send letters, you know, but it's like we don't even communicate anymore.
No, we don't.
I mean, you know, everybody's on their phone.
It's hard to know somebody's real personality nowadays. Like, I know for me, like, I work from home and I communicate with people, but it's through the computer, you know, just messaging or whatever. And we may see each other once a week on a Zoom meeting, but it's really hard to know what somebody is saying and what they really mean in text messages and stuff.
We've talked about that at work too. You can't get, I was in a meeting today, and you know, we normally have video meetings, but the person drove over to talk because and I thought the communication was so much better, and the meeting went so much better because you were there with the person.
Face to face.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, if we could just go back to that some, you know, instead of all this text messaging and stuff, I think we would be closer to people and understand people more, you know. Right. It's hard to understand what people are really saying. You know, you have to see somebody's expression a lot of time to know what they really mean. You know?
And if you text like I do, everybody that receives my text say, I'm like, what did you say?
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
I mean, it's like my boss called and said, I got your text, but it makes absolutely no sense to me. You know?
Yeah.
It's just, you know, and that's kind of, you know, homesteading's about that, to get closer to, you know, for families to get closer too.
Yeah,
so, you know, and I'd like to encourage people, if you're thinking about starting a homestead, you know, in some way, you don't, you know, go only as far as you can, but.
Yeah, I mean, you can have some garden on your back deck, you know, in a small raised garden bed, you know, you can grow a tomato or grow some
And if you've got
peppers.
Young kids, another thing starting a homestead is Of course, we're talking about burnout. This could lead to burnout, but I really like the people that do homeschooling.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
really,
That's, I did homeschool a couple of times, but it wasn't for me.
but I think it could have been different if we had
Yeah.
had the attitude we have now. I
Right.
think we didn't have the same mindset back then.
Yeah, that's another thing. If you're going to start a homestead, one thing, if you've got young kids to think about is think about doing homeschooling.
Yeah.
Nowadays they have, they can go online and
honestly,
do all their
homeschooling's about
Yeah.
I mean, it's better than going to school in my opinion. I mean,
Yeah, it is.
Because a lot of times they just watch videos anyway.
Right, right. And some of the teachers don't really teach anymore. They're teaching our kids things.
And there are some good teachers.
There
are some great
there
teachers.
are. We know some great teachers.
Yeah.
But sometimes there's not. You have those that teaching all this stuff that you really don't want your kids learning. So, if you could think about just homeschooling, if it's if you've got a homestead. And that would help with burnout. I mean, I know it probably would be stressful, but they have so many things now, like the backup program,
Yeah.
they
And
get
there are
online.
other programs that I
Yeah.
think people like.
Yeah.
We're not a specialist in that, but
No, we're
do
not.
your research. But
Yeah.
I think if we were starting over, I think I would like to
homestead.
To home-
Yeah,
homeschool.
homeschool, a homestead. If we started all over today, if we could go back, we would start on this farm, using the land, and homeschool the children and do it again. But
Which we lucked out, and our kids turned out good, and I'm shocked about that. but I'm real proud about that. But I do wish we would have taught them to work in the garden.
Yeah.
But we didn't try to teach them till they were grown.
Yeah.
And it's a little harder to teach at that point. But but hopefully you'll think about homesteading, and if you move too fast, it could get kind of bad. But
Yeah.
it's never hurts to take a break and sit out by a fire like we are and just enjoy it. It's a cool night.
Yeah, it is.
Right now, if you're watching the replay, it's different. But if you're, right now live, it's close to Christmas, and but you can't help
to get some marshmallows for this fire. I still hadn't got marshmallows.
I don't do the marshmallow thing, but we talked about the hot chocolate.
Yeah. I need some hot chocolate and some marshmallows.
Yeah.
So maybe next week, maybe next Friday, we can
Yeah.
have a fire again, and I'll get us some marshmallows and some hot chocolate. We'll talk about something.
Yeah. I'm not a marshmallow person, so
Well, you can drink hot chocolate, and I'll put marshmallows in my hot chocolate. You don't have to eat marshmallows.
What's a marshmallow made out of?
Sugar?
Oh, well, then it's not good for you.
No, but they're good.
Was it just sticky sugar?
I guess, I'm really not sure. I need to...
Has anybody ever looked to see what a marshmallow is made of?
Yeah. What is a marshmallow?
You might not
made of?
eat one if you.
I mean,
knew
can you
what it
make
was
like a
making.
homemade marshmallow? You make homemade everything else. Can you make a homemade marshmallow? And like, when did the marshmallows come about? I know they hadn't always been.
Well, we got to know that now.
Yeah, you got to look it up. What is a marshmallow made out of? Does anybody know? I don't know.
Yeah, we're going to be a homesteading channel. We're talking about marshmallows. Let's see, history.
History of the marshmallow?
Well, it's not typing as good.
Oh, you don't know how to type.
Well, no, it's not that I don't know how to type. It's the phone's got all this moisture on it from the outside.
Oh.
Marshmallow. Good. Thank you for autocorrect.
Yeah. It is nice to have some conveniences, We didn't used to could just look up a marshmallow. What does it say?
Wow, I didn't know marshmallows began over. This is according to AI. You might want to double check it.
Tell us about marshmallows.
They began over 4,000 years ago in ancient Egypt as a medical treat from the mallow plant roots mixed with honey for royalty and gods, evolving in 19th century France into confection with whipped egg whites and sugar.
Okay, so it's whipped egg whites and sugar nowadays.
And eventually becoming mass produced. Well, I didn't know they were that old.
Well, I didn't either.
I think they finally got like popular about 1950s is what this says.
Yeah. So I did
Well,
not
that
know
was
that
very
either. We learned
interesting.
something new about marshmallows.
Yeah. So they're French, huh?
I guess. French
Wow. I
marshmallows.
wonder what an old 4,000-year-old, I mean, like back then, what did it look like?
What's a mellow plant, you know? Is that a picture of it? Yeah.
I guess that's it.
Yeah, a mellow plant.
I would hold it the phone, but I don't think you could see it anyway.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
So-
that's, yeah. If you're watching this, you learned something about marshmallows.
Yeah.
Wow. Started in 2000 BC. Well, is that not amazing?
That is amazing.
So if you do a marshmallow, if you roast it, that's an ancient thing.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
I didn't know that either. I just thought it was something 1950s or something. That came
Well,
out with.
from the looks of it, it became, like what we
Popular.
know today as a marshmallow in the 1950s, but it dates back 4,000 years ago. So it was worth watching. Yeah. So the fire needs to be a little hotter, doesn't it?
Yes, it's a little cool out here. What
Yeah.
what temperature is it?
In the 30s, isn't it?
Let's see. I know they're modern and convenient. Let's look up the temperature. Well, it says 43. It's not 30 yet. It's gonna be.
I think it's in the 30s.
I don't know. I don't think so.
You know,
Think you're wrong.
we have all this land, and I actually bought this wood for tonight's fire because we had some,
It rained.
yeah, it rained. We didn't really have any firewood ready to go, but I thought, well, I'll get this dry. It took forever to start the thing.
Yeah, I think it's just because the ground's wet. By the way, if you're making a fire or don't know how to make a fire, you do have to use dry wood. You can't use green wood. Green wood don't.
Yeah,
don't
green wood will be, it won't be fun because it'll start popping and stuff
Yeah.
if it ever starts.
Yeah, yeah,
But yeah, this good little campfire.
yeah.
So is it time to wrap it up?
I guess so.
Okay.
I may go find some hot chocolate after this.
Yeah. So, but we want to thank you for watching, and hopefully that's helped you if you're starting a homestead and worried about burnout. You don't want to get burned out, and you want to enjoy that homestead. And we're trying to bring this live stream to you every weeknight at 7:30 Central.
We're going to take off Christmas Eve next week, though, so just know that.
But we might actually be on Christmas night.
Yes, because we
Just
do all
depends.
our Christmas stuff on Christmas morning and Christmas Eve, and so we don't do a whole lot, when Christmas night comes
After
around.
that, after Christmas Eve, it's over.
No, Christmas morning it's over.
It's over.
So we
I'll
will,
be glad when it's over.
but maybe next week. No, I think it's supposed to be clear all next week, so we'll be able to do a fire again maybe on a Friday or something. But we hope that if you're planning on getting a homestead, that you do that. It's very rewarding, and if you're burnt out, try to do some of those things that we talked about. Just take a day off, or go get a neighbor to help you, or just take a breather for a few days.
Yeah, we don't want to discourage anybody because
Yeah.
honestly, the homesteading thing has been the best thing we have ever done.
And like I said, I was more burnt out with a huge house and and bills
I know
to pay.
we're wrapping up, but like the reason we were burnt out, do you want to say it?
What?
The reason you were burnt out, when we first moved in the house before, we thought, oh gosh, we finally got a nice house. And then I don't know if you've ever seen that movie Money Pit,
Yeah,
but it turned into that.
it did.
Because it was a 5-year-old house, and so many major things went wrong with that house.
Yeah, it did.
That gave us burnout.
Yes, yes. And then the last year we tried to sell it, and many more things went wrong.
Yeah.
With the house. I
Yeah.
mean, it was this thing after thing after thing.
But
with
we
the
fixed
house.
it all. We had, whoever got it after us got a house in perfect
They
shape.
did a new air conditioner.
Yeah, brand new air conditioner. So,
So
but we were glad to get rid of that. But anyway, thank you for joining us, and hope you see you next time. And hope you have a good evening if you're watching in the evening, or
don't
good
forget
day.
to like and subscribe, and we'll see you sometime Monday with some kind of subject.
That's right. We'll talk about something.
Okay.
We had 9.